New to airbrushing and not sure where to start? Perhaps been hesitating to jump in because of the big investment? Then I might just have the solution you're looking for. Today I cross paths with the new Gaahleri GTS06 Serenair Mini Air Compressor airbrush package and give it the once over and share my thoughts with you. Yes, this has been supplied to me free of charge for the purpose of review, but I can guarantee you there are no expectations around my findings. I have been using Gaahleri airbrushes and achieved pretty good results from them, which is the reason I've agreed to take a look at this package for you today. This is an all-in-one package that is designed to get you up and airbrushing with the minimum of fuss and investment. The box contains the GTS06 compressor, as well as the Classic Series CS36 airbrush, and all of the hoses and holders you need to get you going. The instruction booklet runs you through the basic setup and the things to look out for in terms of paint results, but airbrushing is very hard to learn by reading about it in a book. The compressor itself is compact and supplied in shrink wrap, and as you can see, it's about half the size of a shoebox, say. There is no air tank, and it will supply compressed air when the trigger is depressed on the airbrush. There are 5 buttons on the control face, the center one being the power switch, the left and right controlling the pressure incrementally, and the up and down buttons being the maximum and minimum pressure settings. Speaking of pressures, there are 7 preset settings from 15 psi up to 27 psi, which should realistically handle just about any spraying requirement you should have. That CS36 airbrush is clearly an entry-level airbrush, with the internal components lacking the quality and finesse of some of the higher-end tools. But the way I see it, the demographic that this is being marketed to really shouldn't need anything more than this. It feels good in the hand, but let's have a look how it sprays. I'm spraying with the AK Real Color paint line here. This is an acrylic lacquer and I'm thinning it with a Tamiya lacquer retarder thinner. Now this is thinned to around 40% thinner to paint, but don't get too caught up in thinning ratios because there are so many variables around giving you that number. Now forgive me through this video because I'll be flip-flopping to different spraying sessions due to some issues I was having with the camera. However, the point and the outcomes were all the same. The compressor is set to 21 psi to get a start, and I set about spraying a solid colour over the paint mule. As you can see, the coverage was generous and opaque without any hint of pulsing, which is one of the resistance points for a compressor of this style. The noise it generated was surprisingly soft as well, less than the usual air tank style compressor I use. Gaahleri is stating it to be 35 decibels for what that's worth. The only real difference was the sound was continuous. If you had your finger on the button, the compressor would be kicking into action and it would stop when you took your finger off. I juiced the pressure up to 27 psi and literally hosed the paint over the underside of the model. The increased pitch in the sound of the air compressor hum was noticeable, and the volume of paint it was pushing through was noticeably greater than the lower pressure. However, it performed really well. While you're watching me paint, please be sure to hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed to ensure you never miss out on a new video. And if you wanted to support this channel grow even more, you could always join me over on the Patreon page. The links are down below. If you have watched any of my videos, you would have seen that I like to paint in a mottled fashion and add highlights and shading to my paintwork, so I set about creating that finish over the black primer. I'd knocked the pressure back to 21 psi, and this seemed to be the sweet spot for the way I like to paint. And then I set about applying the paint in figure 8s and swirls to gradually build up that mottled finish over the model surface. I could then go back over that surface with the green mix lightened with a yellow green and a white. By keeping the paint well thinned and focusing on smaller areas than the paint coverage that preceded it, I can start to create highlights and variation in the finish. But the thing here, obviously, I want to highlight is the control I'm managing to maintain with the airflow and the paint flow of this airbrush, and it was very comfortable and easy to use. One of the considerations I was thinking about was this unit potentially overheating, but after checking it after about a 20-minute session, I couldn't feel any noticeable heat at all, which I found really quite surprising. Knocking the pressure back a little now and looking to freehand a camouflage pattern, and again, the system kept delivering what I was asking of it. Tight lines with a minimum of overspray, and yes, the paint and the way it has been thinned will play a big part in that equation. But in terms of control and predictability, I really couldn't be asking for any more. And there is no better test of an airbrush than the detail that post shading requires. Heavily thin paint targeted in recesses and around details, as well as being used to create staining and streaks. Constant airflow paired with hand motion and a minute amount of paint passing over the needle can create some amazing looking effects once you get comfortable with the tool. It's also worth mentioning that you can use any airbrush with this compressor as long as it has a standard air hose fitting included. Airbrushing can be intimidating for the beginner, with the cost of entry being one of the biggest barriers. Yes, you can pick up a cheap and nasty off eBay, but more often than not that comes with its own challenges, often leaving the beginner more confused than when they started. When last I looked, this was retailing around $80 online. And with the generous 13% discount Gaahleri have offered viewers of this channel, it makes this all-in-one setup quite an attractive proposition. Check the show notes for the discount codes to claim your saving either through Gaahleri directly or through their page on Amazon. They also run additional promotions, so be sure to check in from time to time. For me, mastering the airbrush and understanding paint was the biggest single leap in improving the finish and outcome of my modelling. This setup isn't going to be for everyone and will best suit those new to airbrushing, I'd say, or perhaps the keen modeler looking to work during a family vacation or a business trip. It would also make for a great backup unit if you were wanting to spray with a different style of paint for a certain application. For example, you could use it for your metallics if you didn't want to contaminate your regular brush. Gaahleri continue to impress me with their service and affordability, really making a difference in this hobby. I've only tested this over a short period of time, and logic tells me this may not be the best solution if your spraying sessions are going for hours rather than 10 or 15 minutes. I'd strongly suggest, in fact, I'd probably insist on an inline moisture trap for this setup though. This will help negate any issues with moisture building up in the line, an issue that may become more obvious during a longer session at the bench. A moisture trap is a good insurance policy, but that is the case with any airbrush setup. Gaahleri are looking to add one to their range, but for the meantime, I've left a link down below to one I found on Amazon. There really are no excuses not to be dipping your toe into the world of airbrushing now. You know the drill, guys. Remember, this is the greatest hobby in the world. Share it with your family and share it with your friends, and let's be proud of what we do. Until next time, I will see you soon.
What's stopping you?
What?